Hello, Stuart Bray here with the last in the series looking at the Coraline button eyes makeup, and in this fifth and final video we're taking a look at the application process, which was the most fun part for me. I had a lot of fun doing this and I hope you do too, so please check it out and tell me what you think. Clean off the back of the appliance using some 99% alcohol to remove any dirt or grease that may reduce the effect of the glue. Snip away any areas on the inside where the gelatine went around the eyelid fold. This will make it more comfortable to wear. There's also a little nub on the inside from where we injected. I cut this back with scissors so it was level with the rest of the piece. Then I painted a layer of makeup sealer onto the back and allow it to dry. Now keep slightly back away from the very edge, but allow it to dry thoroughly. The reason for this is gelatine is affected by sweat, so by putting a sealer such as this on the back we can reduce the likelihood of any problems later. The trouble with sweat, it has salt in it, so anything like tears or snot, anything like that, anything saline, that will create a problem for gelatine because it melts it. I'm using the Coraline Fixer Spray, but you could also use something like Matthew Mungall's Sealer A, Green Marble or something similar. I used Fixer Spray because it's pretty easy to find. If the Fixer Spray you buy comes in an aerosol can, then you can spray this into a lid or a cup to get some liquid which can then be brushed on for much better control. While this fixer spray is drying, and I use a mild astringent to clean Paul's skin, this will help ensure maximum glue strength. I then offer up the appliance to make sure it fits as it should, and to make a note of any problem areas. Then I use an adhesive to glue down Paul's eyebrows. I want to be sure that the volume of the brow sits as flat as possible, and the appliance is stuck to the brows, which themselves are then stuck firmly to the face. Now I'm using a water-based acrylic adhesive. The one I'm using is Aquafix from Mold Life. Other glues include Pros-Aid or Beta Bond. These are all professional makeup adhesives developed for application to skin, and they all appear white when they're wet and then they dry clear, but they remain tacky. And that's very important because that means that the glue works even when it's dry. Using a blow dryer, I dry the brows and press them flat firmly. Then I glue the area of the skin which is to be covered by the appliance. Some people like to work in sections and that works fine, but personally I like to get all the glue on, wait for it to dry and then place the appliance lightly on to check the position. It's a good idea to stand back and check if it looks right. If the position is off or if it's off to one side slightly, you can now lift it away to reposition because you've only put it on very lightly. When you're happy and you're thinking it's in the right place, then you press it firmly to make it stick well, but it's very important to not press firmly too soon. Press from the centre and work outwards to avoid trapping any pockets of air which will appear as bubbles under the surface. Then, once everything is pressed down firmly, glue any edges which are still not stuck flat to the skin. I like to use cotton swabs to apply the glue, as they can be easily ditched and replaced once they clog up and get messy. Now, if I had to keep cleaning a brush with a solvent, that would add extra time to the application. Lift the edges that are loose and make sure that you overlap the glue to ensure that no areas are left unglued. Press the edge firmly down onto the dry glue. I use a powder puff and a brush handle to press and roll out the edges to ensure that they're stuck well. Once everything is stuck, I tend to wipe a little 99% alcohol over the edge to help blend these edges even more. Now this doesn't actually melt the gelatine, but what it does do is it creeps under the edge and it causes the glue to unstick ever so slightly. This allows me to massage them even flatter and then the alcohol evaporates, leaving the glue behind unharmed. It's a very effective method for any edges which have rolled under or creases that may appear. You can basically unstick the appliance temporarily using a bit of alcohol. You can see how well these edges are blending into the skin. You can now appreciate the level of tolerance you have to work to when making appliances. The edges need to be made feather thin and the accurate mould making is essential. A bad mould can undo a really good sculpt. You can now use a little witch hazel to melt away any remaining edges. Now that the appliance is stuck down, it's time to seal the outside of the piece, just like we did before it was glued on. Doing this ensures that any moisture that lands on the surface doesn't affect the gelatine. I apply it with a brush and a sponge and use a blow dryer to speed up the drying time. I then stippled a little anti-shine over the surface to kill the slightly glossy effects of the sealer. The anti-shine I'm using is called Super Matte Anti-Shine by Makeup International. You could use a light coat of translucent powder, but I prefer to use a good anti-shine. Whatever you use, make sure it's not greasy because we still need to put makeup on the surface of this, and if it's greasy, nothing's going to stick to it. So now it's time to start adding colour. I'm using Skin Illustrators and alcohol activated makeup. I usually start with a red tone to put some of the appearance of the blood that's under the skin surface back. I use 99% alcohol to make a very thin wash of colour. There's not a lot of pigment in this, it's mostly alcohol. It's easier to start lightly and add more. Red has a habit of becoming apparent after you've applied it, so go easy at the start until you get a feel for it. Stipple the brush in a random fashion and allow an area to dry before going over it again. You can also flick the wash of colour on too. This allows the colour specks to fall in a random fashion that better approximates the way natural skin is pigmented. The colour is very washy, so there's no heavy pigment going on over any one layer. You tend to accumulate layers to build a translucent finish over several passes. I now start punching up the eye area and making the wrinkles look sore using a bruisey red colour. I also decided to mess with the lips a bit, make them look sore and breaking up the even border of the lip line. Then I mixed up some blood colour using Skin Illustrator, a nice washy colour, and allow it to drip from the eye area. It runs in a natural pattern that's not easily done. If you were trying to paint this on, it would look very artificial. If you just let it run naturally, it looks much more realistic. Then I add some caked blood around the edge and in a few other choice spots just to help the look. Dabbing this with a scrunched up tissue to move it around gives a much more realistic look. Now it's time to glue the buttons on. The buttons have been pre-distressed and scratched up and threaded to look like they've been stitched on. Then I apply a strong silicone adhesive to both the holes over the eyes and the back of the buttons. The glue I'm using is Snappy G, a silicone adhesive from Mold Life. Once the glue is dry, I press the buttons into place and apply some drying blood around the outside edge. This stuff is an alcohol-based blood by Makeup, and then it dries and it stays securely in place. Very good for continuity. I paint a few brown stained kind of Skin Illustrator colours on the buttons to keep them looking matte and dirty. Then I put some blood paste around the chin and mouth area just to help with that kind of creepy, gross look. I apply it quite heavily and then mop most of it off with a scrunched up tissue so that it looks more like real blood which has dried and flaked off the skin. And that's it, ready for business. When it's time to remove the makeup, I pull the buttons away and tear holes so Paul can see again. This has a creepy new look all on its own. Then we carefully use soft brushes to apply the adhesive remover. You want to use something appropriate like Super Solve, Bond Off or Pro Clean, something that's designed for skin use to take these glues off. Take care near the eyes. If you're interested in knowing more about this kind of stuff, then if you click on the Show More button underneath this video, you'll see a series of links there which will take you to my website, some of the free tutorials and articles and other videos, and also of course the link to my Awesome Latex e-course, which is a downloadable course, the first module of which you can get for free. Thanks so much for watching these videos. I appreciate the support, and if you have any questions, please do get in touch. For a free downloadable workbook on this application, go to the blog link under this video.